the same with California. Agree though, because most people aren't thinking very well.
They're not taught to think, they're taught to follow. That's our problem.
Well, maybe we should get some school experts. We're going to start pretty quick, I suppose. But if they own our education system, they're going to destroy their country. So that's got to be back in local control, not national. They say it's not national, but everything is
Everything
the
is
same everywhere.
one size fits all. This is a program to help educate you on some of the issues that are vital to your understanding and way of life, and what can be done to improve it. Only when we get other views can we make intelligent choices regarding the decisions and options available to us for the enrichment and improvement of our lives. Good Saturday evening. Truman Sigler for Personalities in the News, live from smoky Fresno, California. This show is dedicated to the memory of John Castle, who started Personalities in the News in 1964, and it ran through 2003 on several local TV stations. The format of this program is educational in nature and based on the constitutions of the United States of America and the California Republic. The program today is basically a repeat of last week's show, with some additions and updates of where we are today and how we got there. And this is number 5 in a series. This will be based on the events of the last few weeks' happenings and our views on them. As these are current events and still in progress, and the full story is not out, it may take more time to research the actual facts. First, our first topic will be on the Constitution of this republic, as set forth by the founders. We are a republic. Are we a republic or a democracy? And what is the difference? And is it democratic? This will be presented by Steve Hempling, director of the Free Enterprise Society and co-host of this program. Now, we will get into one thing that I like to get into right quickly, and this is welcome. Welcome to America. You came here because you didn't like there. And now you want to change here to be like there. We are not racist, phobic, or anti-whatever you are. We simply like it here the way it is. And most of us actually came here because it is not like there, wherever there was. You are welcome here, but please stop trying to make here like there. If you want to be there, like there, then you should not have left there to come here. And you are invited to leave here and go back to your there at your earliest convenience. I thought that was very good. There's a lot of people that that could pertain to. I think you see a lot of them in the news, always trying to change our country back to the places. Now, I can't show you a picture, but the two people that were on that, it was called Welcome to Milwaukee, I think it was, where this whole thing started. And there was the two politicians, women, part of the squad, congratulating each other, calling each other sisters, saying, I hope you're happy with the way it looks here that you've made this new place. And there's a picture of the city that's been sacked and burned right here in the United States. And the other was a picture of Somalia, if that doesn't tell you what's going on. So that's why if you don't like it there, you don't come here. But if you want to make here like there, go back there. Then you'll all be happy, and so we'll all be happy. I've got to put this back in context here. Other talking points will be on the topic presented on our previous shows. The alleged claims of police misconduct using constructive notice to inform them of their legal obligations to their oath of office. And more on the so-called pandemic. Steve is going to be in on that, and probably if Sue Ann can call in, she will give her opinion on that also. We will address our observed views and opinions on these subjects. The events that have happened in the last weeks are of grave importance to all of us. We must use the constructive notice process now if this country is to survive. That is the only way that we, the people, can show the power that we have over these people in government. The law enforcement police arresting people for exercising their rights. The hijacking of protesting people by criminal factions that looted, burned, and attacked innocent people's businesses after the supposed peaceful marches were over. And what was and is a war against the foundation and principles of this country and must be dealt with as an invasion. And I think there's plenty of clauses in the Constitution that have to do with that, and I'm positive Steve will highlight that for us when he gives his presentation. It is being cordoned by the same political parties by inflicting unconstitutional orders and mandates by the governors, mayors, and others that destroys the trust, respect, and fear of any interaction with the officials or the police. The so-called pandemic coronavirus and the reaction of the servants in government and to the edicts and reactionary controls they placed on the people. We, the people, have the power and the means to effect a change and force you servants, which we elected to manage this republic, and you took an oath to do so. We are not asking, we are demanding that you servants honor your oath and follow the constitutions. We, the people, only have the rights that we are willing to stand up for. Otherwise, we are only slaves. Also, ladies and gentlemen, you can call in. We have a new number, 899-1550. That's 559-899-1550. So give us a call after our presentations. Okay, now we'll get back to our presentation here. And Steve, you're up first with the Constitution. Is the Constitution undemocratic? That's one way of people looking at it. I got that in the mail the other day, I sent it to you, and that's a good comment to go on with your presentation. Steve, you got the show.
The article is entitled, "Is the Constitution Undemocratic?" It's a very interesting question because it drives me crazy. All the news people, even Fox News, continually call this a democracy. And this is not supposed to be a democracy. This is supposed to be a republic. And but it talks about the 2 senators in every state gives the other states too much power. California complains about that. New York complains about it. But it was I think the founders were genius in this, because without that equal representation at the federal level, these other states would have been destroyed, probably financially and other ways. And else interesting about that, when they're talking about unconstitutional or democratic, and the way that the House of Representatives was always elected by the people. The Senates were always elected or appointed by the state legislators. California, for example, would appoint 2 senators to go to Washington, D.C. to protect California's interest. That's done away with in the Constitution through the 17th Amendment. The 17th Amendment now allows senators to be elected by the people, just like the House of Representatives. The problem with that is we don't need both of those houses to represent the same people. It was genius to have 2 different houses, both elected by a different procedure, by different people, protecting different things. But when that went away, we started having a lot more problems. The 55-mile-an-hour, all these federal mandates, 55-mile-an-hour speed limit, and you can name a whole bunch of others, the states had no power to stop them any longer because they had no representation at the federal level after the 17th Amendment. But if we go to the Constitution, which is the formula, if you will, that made this country the greatest country the world has ever seen. There is no country in the world that has individual rights like the United States of America. There is no country from any individual rights position that is better than this country for any race. Now, in Article 4, Section 4, here's what it says. The United States shall guarantee to every state in the Union a republican form of government. The word democracy does not even appear in the Constitution. A lot of people might be surprised about that. Now, the U.S. Army in 1928 defined these things, and it was part of the citizenship test back then. But democracy, they considered mobocracy. 51% of the people under democracy can vote the rights away from the other 49%. Does that happen today, Truman?
Almost every day.
It does happen. It happens in our elections. Happens in these bills that go into California, where people from all over the state vote on something to take your property rights away. Well, under a republic, that would never happen. And in a republic, it is a representative government, whereas where the law is set down in stone. That's the Constitution. This is the rule book. Even our elected representatives cannot go outside of this Constitution legally. So the 51% of the people cannot take 49% of the other people's rights, because they have the same rights that you do and everyone has. And that's a big difference. So, I think we just need to correct people more and more about this. But the Constitution being undemocratic is absolutely correct. It is undemocratic because it was never intended to be democratic. And that may be hard for people to understand, because we're not taught these things in school anymore at all. Yeah. I mean, I was taught some things, but I was also taught to love this country in school, and that's not happening. That little thing you did in the beginning about here and there, and we already have a comment on Facebook. She's a woman named Elaine. I totally agree. And don't move from one state and bring your mess to another state. She's probably talking about California where I'm at. Because they do that. They move out because they get mad at California, and then they try to make wherever they want to turn into California. But you're talking on a more broad scale, and you're talking about Sharia law, these kind of things coming from the Middle East. And you've got those national representatives, we've got state representatives that are Muslims that really seem to hate this country. Why would we vote for someone that hates this country? I don't understand. What kind of representation are they going to be? They're going to be terrible. And to change our country away from this Constitution is not going to make things better. There's a lot of people, I think most people know that this is really the best document ever made by man for a government. And the riots and everything going on, if we were following this Constitution properly, I don't think this would be happening. Now, if we continue on in Section 4, the United States guarantees a republican form of government. I'm questioning. Trump wants to go in there with the National Guard or more to stop riots, and he's being prevented from doing that. And people around him are saying, "Oh, you can't do it unless they ask you to come in." I'm not so sure about that. Right in here it says they guarantee to be a republican form of government. Oregon has become, in my opinion, very Marxist or very socialist. They couldn't care less what the people think. I think he has grounds to go in there, and it continues on right here in this same article, and shall protect each of them from invasion. Now, it is true that there isn't a big flotilla of ships coming from China or someplace off the California coast, or the West Coast or the East Coast, but I think we are being invaded. This seems to be planned. It is very organized from coast to coast. These people, they have a lot of money somewhere behind them, because these big vans come in with bricks and crowbars and everything to these places, and they intend to cause trouble. They're not peaceful protesters. They're not protected by the Constitution, and Trump, I think, has grounds to go in just because of that. And then it continues on here. On application of the legislature, doesn't say state legislature, or of the executive, when the legislature cannot be convened against domestic violence. Now, certainly, we can consider this domestic violence. Nobody would even argue that. What I see, though, is CNN, MSNBC, they don't even report this. They report this as peaceful protest. With all the deaths and fires and burned out buildings, I just don't understand that.
Doesn't look peaceful to me.
Well, it's not peaceful. And so we have a constitution that protects our rights. The police are under attack right now, and I'm not a big fan of police, as you know, Truman, but it's not because of their duties of protecting people's property and their rights. I agree with that. The problem the police are having is the legislature keeps passing laws that punish people. They take your car if it doesn't have the right color sticker on it. They arrest you if you don't have a piece of paper in your pocket called a driver's license. These kind of things make people upset with the police. That's not protecting anybody. I mean, when you're driving down the road and you see a car with the wrong color sticker, registration sticker on the license plate, you slam on your brakes and you squeal and you spin around and everything and run into a ditch because you got to get away from that person. He's very dangerous. No, of course you don't do that. You couldn't care less. Like, most people don't care about these things. But the police used to not care about these things so much either. They're there to protect things. You know, if a bridge falls down, you're supposed to set up
Steve,
a roadblock so you don't go.
Steve, it's time for a break. And those of you that are watching us on television and listening to us on social media, we are live for you during the break. So, Mr. Station Master, take it away.
Doing that.
These cats become a Category 1 storm, has some obstacles, but it looks like it's going to now shift to the east and target New Orleans sometime during the day on Monday, but it could hit the Florida Panhandle, potentially western parts of Louisiana as well. And then just 2 days later, Tropical Storm Laura gaining strength in the Gulf of Mexico is likely a Category 1 storm or greater, and then targeting the same areas Wednesday afternoon. We do think we will see strengthening. This could turn out, unfortunately, to be a historic event.
With a record number of wildfires burning in California right now and concerns about a new round of lightning moving in on Sunday night over Northern California, President Trump has approved California's request for a major disaster declaration. He will help bolster support for those living in numerous counties. Governor Gavin Newsom, in a statement thanking President Trump, Newsom has talked about bringing in firefighters from the East Coast and Australia to help battle flames. Alex Stone, ABC News, Washington.
1,500 volunteers attending an experimental concert in Germany, equipped with trackers and fluorescent hand sanitizer to help researchers learn how the virus spreads in crowds. That's something American colleges and universities are struggling with. At least 36 states now reporting outbreaks linked to campuses.
Oh my God.
Syracuse University.
Syracuse University issuing a warning to students after reviewing videos of crowded parties. 23 students are suspended.
A Category 1 storm has some obstacles, but it looks like it's going to now shift to the east and target New Orleans sometime during the day on Monday, but it could hit the Florida Panhandle, potentially western parts of Louisiana as well. And then just 2 days later, Tropical Storm Laura gaining strength in the Gulf of Mexico is likely a Category 1 storm or greater, and then targeting the same areas Wednesday afternoon. We do think we will see strengthening. This could turn out, unfortunately, to be a historic event. Marco now is forecast to become a Category 1 storm. Looks like it's going to now shift to the east and target New Orleans sometime during the day on Monday, but it could hit the Florida Panhandle, potentially western parts of Louisiana as well. And then just 2 days later, Tropical storm Laura gaining strength in the Gulf of Mexico is likely a Category 1 storm or greater, and then targeting the same areas Wednesday afternoon. We do think we will see strengthening. This could turn out, unfortunately, to be a historic event. Marco now is forecast to become a Category 1 storm, has some obstacles, but it looks like it's going to now shift to the east and target New Orleans sometime during the day on Monday, but it could hit the Florida Panhandle, potentially western parts of Louisiana as well. And then just 2 days later, Tropical storm Laura gaining strength in the Gulf of Mexico is likely a Category 1 storm or greater, and then targeting the same areas Wednesday afternoon. We do think we will see strengthening. This could turn out, unfortunately.
In years past, decades past, when you came here, you had to work. You weren't given this thing. It was like, this is almost like Cinderella today. You swim across the river, you got all your clothes are all tattered, you don't have a dime to your name, and your hand touches the other side of that river. And boom, you're in this new clothes, and you float up into a new car, and you get free education. I mean, who wouldn't want to come here? If I was over there, I'd want to come over here too. But I don't think I would want to change it. So we had another comment here on getting comments in on Facebook. If you want to cover one, here's one from Patricia. Not everyone who moves from California are Californians. These people moved to California from other states, made their money, and left. Years ago, we had a bumper sticker: "Welcome to California, now leave."
Gonna make a little.
I'm one of them. I moved to California 30 years ago or something. But when I first moved here, it was fantastic. I mean, there was jobs everywhere. The state was clean, and that's just not the case anymore.
Yeah. Well, I was born in San Francisco in 1934, so I'm a native Californian. My dad was in the Army Air Corps at that time, so I was born at Letterman General Hospital and grew up in San Francisco and Sacramento and Truckee and moved to various other states. I want to say one thing here. The views, opinions, and views of our hosts, including me, are theirs and do not represent this program or this station. And so take that in mind. We gather information from the internet and other sources. We do research on the actual Constitution and the laws. We don't just say, well, this is our opinion, even though it is. It is based on fact and law. Stevie, also, we're going to talk a little bit about the pandemic, I understand from talking to you earlier today.
Yes, but I do want to mention Newsom's and recall. You mentioned it a little earlier, but I want to go to recall Gavin 2020. .com, recallgavin2020.com. You can download the sheets yourself. You can fill them out for you and your family, or get other people to sign them. You can send them in yourself. They only need 2 million, I think. That sounds like a lot, but it's not. They should have that quickly. And,
I would say with all that's going on, I agree with that one.
I mean, Newsom is terrible. Now, I was surprised with the pandemic that he's not the worst one out there, like that governor of Michigan. She's worse. I've got another comment on Facebook here. Newsom is only nice when he receives money from President Trump. Otherwise, he's a parasite. Well said. I mean,
well said.
Well, he declared emergency on these fires that's all around us right now, and he was very gracious by that. He called Trump, and Trump answered the phone right away and said he would help. So, but otherwise, he has nothing good to say about Trump. But unless he wants money, you're right, Patricia. I assume she is a Californian too. So. Okay. The Constitution is the only one of its kind where we have rights. And let's talk. We can go a little bit to the First Amendment one, because this is the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion, prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech. Now, you and I are using freedom of speech. And people on Facebook and people that call in. Most countries, if this was Cuba, for example, we wouldn't be doing this. So, I am really thankful we have that kind of freedom. Now, that freedom is being turned away. They're trying to stop that. I mean, if you don't say the right things today, you get attacked pretty heavily. So... But anyway, and the people to peacefully to assemble and to petition the government for redress. Peaceful assembly is not assaulting people, burning down buildings. These people are criminals. And it's ridiculous. In New York, they're arresting them and then just releasing them right back into the public.
And the
Well,
same here in
pandemic.
Fresno, too.
What's that?
They're doing the same thing here in Fresno. They're arresting them, and then they turn them right loose, almost.
Well, that's the police chief or the sheriff down there.
I think it's mainly the city doing this. I don't think the county is involved, other than they're housing them, but they're following the direction of what the arresting entity was.
Well, I am a total non-believer in this pandemic. We have been lied to so much from the beginning. And for those that you really believe this and are really scared to leave your home, I just encourage you to look and study a little bit about masks, about this disease, about how many people really die. Because look, here's the thing. It's been less than 0.1% of deaths. It was way overcast. They talked about everybody thought it was like a death sentence when you get it, and it is not. It's not even as bad as the regular flu in some respects. And 15-year-old is under. I mean, that's less than 1 in a million that have died from this disease. There's hundreds of them died from other things every year, but not this COVID. And they should be back in school if they wanted to be. You go a little further up to 25 to include all the college students, you're looking at like 7 out of 1 million. I mean, that's nothing. But as a country, we're about 550 right now per million that have died. And we're right in the middle of the pack. Sweden, who never closed down, never locked down, is just like 30 people a year, 30 people ahead of us in deaths. And their schools were open the whole time. Their businesses were open. Their economy's running. You know, the lockdowns and the closures are going to kill us in the long term. You have every school and university, seems like, in the nation. That's 1.5 billion students being affected. There's a large increase in domestic violence reported in every one of those lockdown states. Anxiety's high. Heart rates are a problem. Child physical and sexual abuse is happening because they're all at home, frustrated. Major increases in alcohol. That's one of the, if you manufacture alcohol, I guess you're doing pretty good because everybody's buying booze right now.
Not me.
Suicide. Go ahead.
I said, not me.
Okay. Well, no, not me either. But the suicide hotlines are up 600%. And that includes young people. There are people, I mean, in the teenage years, at a larger numbers, definitely committing suicide. And what does this teach our children anyway? I mean, as an adult, I can rationalize some of these things, and we're going to get over it. But kids, they're going to be afraid to be around people. I see it's a very bad thing because you're going to be afraid to touch people, afraid to play with people, afraid to do anything. Kids cannot, they're not going to do well at that. And the mask, I mean, there is so much evidence that the masks aren't going to do any good. It's like setting up a chain link fence to stop mosquitoes. Did I mention that last week?
Yes, you did, and it was very effective.
Yeah, you set up here's a
I
big
think I
swarm of
caught one.
mosquitoes coming. So I quick run out and set up a chain link fence to stop those mosquitoes. And arguably, I mean, this is what some of these tests on the mask have done. Arguably, it will help because some of those mosquitoes are going to run into the wire and kill themselves. But 99% of them are going to get right through that thing, which is the same true of particularly the cloth mask. If you enlarge them, they look like a chain link fence, and you give the coronavirus an enlargement at the same enlargement, it's like a mosquito. They're just even none of the studies that I've looked at is definitive. They're all saying that it may, or I would say you could say might help, might, and but they have no proof of it. There's nothing scientific that I can see that proves that.
I'd like to read a little something here that John Rappaport put out. He's from No More Fake News, and he calls this the real news. And the topic for this week that I got from him is COVID, the invention of false reality, the hypnotic persuader. It says, recently I've been writing about my early research on AIDS and the lessons learned in the 1980s. This is perhaps the most important lesson, as it led to a curious conclusion about human psychology. I call it the fixation on the one. And once I had dismissed the paltry evidence that HIV caused AIDS, I began investing every so-called high-risk group. These groups had been named by the CDC as most likely to contract AIDS: gay men, Africans, Haitians, IV drug users, and homophiliacs. I showed there were different non-virus factors in each group that would cause the basic so-called symptom of AIDS. This was a major breakthrough. First, it meant that the immune system suppression, which was called AIDS, could only result from many different causes. Second, and this was the central realization, what was being called AIDS was not one thing, as AIDS was not one thing. And he goes on, the label AIDS was a piece of hypnotic propaganda. It was being applied to diverse groups of people in order to make it seem they were all afflicted by the same cause. To offer just one example of many, populations in Africa were suffering from chronic and severe malnutrition. And it was well understood that malnutrition is the #1 cause of T-cell depletion in the world. T-cells are part and parcel of the immune system's defense apparatus. Seriously undermine the T-cells and the immune system collapses. And he goes on. He was in on this from day one. And today, the virus for COVID has not been found. They haven't found it. And I'll go into that after the break, which we're going to go on one right now, according to the music. Mr. Station Master, take it away for the break.
The head of the UN Atomic Watchdog Agency travels to Iran to access sites believed to be using or storing undeclared nuclear material. These are your world headlines from ABC News. Amid growing tensions over Iran's nuclear program, the head of the IAEA travels to Tehran next week to gain access to sites thought to store or use undeclared nuclear material. Pakistan slaps financial sanctions on members of the Taliban in Afghanistan, including its chief peace negotiator and several members of the Haqqani network. Russia's fiercest critic, Alexei Navalny, arrived in Berlin for emergency medical treatment under heavy security. The opposition activist fell seriously ill after drinking what his supporters say was tea laced with poison. India is now on the verge of nearing a grim milestone and becoming the third country to record 3 million coronavirus cases. The country recorded more than 69,000 new cases. South Korea announces tougher social distancing rules to stop a surge in coronavirus cases in its capital, Seoul. I'm Lama Hassan at the ABC News Foreign Desk in London. The head of the UN Atomic...
Now your political insights from ABC News. During each day of the Republican convention, Democrats say they will highlight what they claim are a different one of the president's failures, from health care to the economy. They will hold video conferences featuring the House Speaker and other top Democrats. Democrats say, unlike their convention, the president's event will try to divide the nation, with conspiracy theorists and people threatening Americans' rights to protest. Republicans finalizing their speaker roster for a convention that will, for the most part, originate at the White House, where the president will give his acceptance speech. The acting Postmaster General Louis DeJoy saying the cost-cutting he had ordered was not designed to slow or prevent voting by mail.
It's trying to have any negative impact on the election is an outrageous claim.
DeJoy testifying that the post office has for years removed blue collection boxes and outdated sorting machines because Americans are mailing far fewer letters and far more packages. Andy Field, ABC News.
In California, nearly 1 million acres scorched. Two of the largest fires in the state's recorded history raging out of control. Rescue video showing the harrowing conditions on the front lines.
All right, guys, I'm going to get you out of here, okay? All right.
North of San Francisco, a sheriff's helicopter saving 2 trapped firefighters.
Drive straight up.
Using a 100-foot line to reach them. Flames just 75 yards away.
See how close it is, guys?
More than 13,000 firefighters responding across the state. In California,
Historic event. Marco now is forecast to become a Category 1 storm, has some obstacles, but it looks like it's going to now shift to the east and target New Orleans sometime during the day on Monday, but it could hit the Florida Panhandle, potentially western parts of Louisiana as well. And then just 2 days later, Tropical Storm Laura gaining strength in the Gulf of Mexico is likely a Category 1 storm or greater, and then targeting the same areas Wednesday afternoon. We do think we will see strengthening. This could turn out, unfortunately, to be a historic event.
I mean, everything that... on the news.
Okay, Steve, I have to interrupt you from your very interesting conversation. We are going back on the air. Welcome back to Personalities of the News. And our topics for today. Call in to Talk Radio 1550 KXEX. Am I correct? Is it 899 or is it 999?
899 I have.
899 is what I have, but I think it's in one spot. If you don't work the first time, try the other one. It's either 899 or 999 1850. Be sure to call in, and we're going to go back to our conversation on the pandemic. And I'm going to read a couple headlines on this first one from this 45-page verdict on the. It says it's a pandemic or plandemic. There's a big difference here in intent, with not much difference in spelling. The verdict is in. All nations deceived, and this is by that PhD up in the Bay Area, and we're going to get him in on the show here one of these days soon, probably after we get started on our new day on Sunday. Here's another thing. The primary purpose of commercially funded clinical research is to maximize financial return on investment, not health. And that was written by John Abramson of Harvard Medical School. And it goes on. It's very interesting reading. It's easy because you got it all in big letters. All of the nations were deceived by pharmakia. That was in Revelations 18:23. That goes back a ways, doesn't it? Origin, ancient Greece. Pharmacia, evil spirit, protector of a poison spring. How many knew that? It goes back into the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. And one of them is wearing a mask on a serpent colored horse. And the mask has holes in it, like your mask that they're wanting you to wear. It doesn't do any good. These things are nothing new. This has been going on for years and years and years. The Economist cover art, meaning The Economist, published weekly and read by 35 million on social media, Rothschild part owner, surprisingly uses backwards writing on its cover, typically employed in occultism and satanic worship circles. This special edition chooses the red horse to symbolize the worldwide orchestrated pandemic in which peace was taken from the hearts and lives of billions. The writer's surgical mask covers both his mouth, nose, and nose, has visible holes to make a mockery of fearful mask wearers who gullibly think they're blocking microbes when they're not. That's like your fence to stop mosquitoes. Instead, natural immunity is weakened, making one more susceptible to infection. Number 2, the writer wears a black blindfold depicting public blindness. Lastly, the writer has on his head a corona, Latin for crown. Indeed, a crowning deception. I'm not going to go any farther into that, but it's good reading. It's very enlightening, and it goes back thousands of years. So what's going on here is nothing new. It's just people have forgotten that because they're not taught it. The churches don't go into this very, very much. However, when I was in a church for a while, they were very much on Revelation, and there's a lot of good information there. And it's working on us today. People that study how to control us are very adept at this stuff. Steve?
Well, you got that right. But the problem is they're trying to make this the new normal. And when these governors and mayors bark orders at Americans, it kind of bothers me. It bothered me from the beginning. You know, we're a free country. These people that we elect, they work for us. Let's just put it in more context. You know, you hire somebody to mow your lawn, and he comes in and orders you around, tells you and your family you got to go in the basement. I'm going to lock you in there, and I'm going to take your car. I'm going to do all these things. Would you be okay with that? Or what if the governor said, well, gee, we think clothes are the thing that's transmitting all this. From now on, we're not wearing no clothes. Let's do an order for that. I mean, most laugh at that, roll their eyes. They're probably doing that right now. But if I told you in January that the governor of California and the rest of many other country would close down all businesses and tell you to wear a mask and to tell you to stay home and don't leave your house, you would have rolled your eyes too, because we just don't do that in this country. I don't understand really quite why so many Americans are just going along with it. They're doing it out of fear. And I don't know if it's fear of the government itself or fear of this disease, but the disease is not that scary as the facts come in. And we have to start thinking for ourselves. That's what Americans do. Now, because if the governments get away with this, we are never going to see an end to it. The new normal for us will be testing, and I don't even understand the testing that they're doing. Why test? You can tell when you're sick, you know. Test, so you're testing. They're going to be screening, contact tracing, monitoring all the time if they can, surveillance of you and everybody. They're going to quarantine and isolation will be kind of the norm. Wearing masks might become almost a permanent thing if we're not careful. Antisocial distance, I like that, antisocial, but that's what it is. We are a social people. We're not going to live like that very happily. Mandatory vaccinations. This is something that I've talked about for several weeks. Bill Gates has a lot to do with this. He is funding a lot of the World Trade or World Health Organization, and a lot of the problems are coming out of there. A lot of things are happening there, and the vaccinations, he's putting money into it. And he's talked the United States into buying 300 million doses of a vaccine if it's ever available. I need to remind you, the coronavirus is the basis for the common cold. There's no vaccine. I've been told all my life for 60 years there's no vaccine for the common cold. That's corona. That's the coronavirus. Same virus we're dealing with here. It's been modified somewhat, but I don't think there's ever going to have a thing or a vaccination. If they do, it's not probably going to be safe. And over half the country isn't going to take it voluntarily. I'm pretty sure about that. And microchipping. When you do take the vaccination, for those that want to, I guess you can do that, but they have the technology to have chips in those syringes, I guess, today, where you can be chipped and be followed and tracked and not even tell you about it. So we have to ask questions. They're making it a crime to ask questions. That's what this program is about. We question everything here.
Yes, we do.
Which should be done everywhere.
Now, there was another organization I belonged to here for a while, which is based on the Egyptian religion, basically, from way back 4,500 years ago. I belonged to that, became a master in the teachings and so forth. And their main saying is object to everything. Say no. Prove it. Now, there's a thing on the internet the other day where somebody had some official made an accusation to somebody, and the person denied it, and the official came back and said, well, prove you didn't. Now, that's antithesis to our rule of law. If you are accused of something, they have the burden of proof. And when you accept it by saying, no, I didn't, you have to accept the burden of proof. That's how they've turned it around. So when they ask you a question, don't answer it. And don't put yourself on the defensive. Always be on the offense. Say no.
Yeah, I have a friend who's...
Okay, we have a caller on the line. Ready to go? Caller, identify yourself and state what you want to tell us.
Hi, yes, I'm from Fresno. My name is Christy. My question is, what do you think about the Democrats saying that they could do a better job instead of how it's been done currently, that if it were them, we wouldn't be in this situation that we are?
Well, they've been in power for 50, 60 years. And if they knew how to do better and we didn't have to do that and they could do better, wouldn't it already be done? Look who it took to get it done and get this thing turned around. Steve, you want to talk on that one?
Well, I think she's talking about the coronavirus situation or something more long term.
Yes.
Well, the coronavirus, I think Trump's he's turned too much power over to the medical people too. I think he made some mistakes because you got countries like Sweden that never did a lockdown, and they're about the same as we are, as far as the way the disease is going, and there was no reason to lock down the economy. We've had worse diseases in this country and did not lock down everything and destroy the economy. Even as an older person, assuming that if I got it, that I would be very sick, and I don't know if that's true, really, because I've heard of many people getting it and not being very sick. So, but the point is, I would never close down the economy and kill everybody's livelihood and even my own family and children just because I might live another year. So I don't know what they would do differently, but you know what the President Biden is saying, or Vice President is saying, he would do a more severe national lockdown, make masks mandatory by law across the United States, and I just don't see that as being anything beneficial. The country's not doing that. It's not coming any worse than anybody else. And here's the thing: they talk about herd mentality. I don't even like that term. I don't like to be referred to as a cow.
Well, how about a bull?
Or whatever. I mean, but let's just put this in context. If every cow was in a different barn, had 1,000 barns with 1,000 cattle, only one cow would be sick. That's true until they come out. I mean, we're not going to have herd mentality when everybody's locked in their house. I mean, that's kind of idiotic to me. We get herd mentality by going about our business, and most people will survive that. And if you're concerned and worried yourself because you have underlying conditions, fine. I mean, you've have been careful probably during flu season. So why is this so that much different? I don't think that the Democrats would have handled it better. I'm not sure what they would have done.
Well, they haven't handled things very good themselves, being in power all this long. Look at the condition the states are in that are run by Democratic governors, and the cities that are run by Democratic governors and have been for 60, 70, sometimes 100 years. That we're getting some.
It's not all Democrat. Yeah, it's not all Democrat and Republican. Because
right.
Like Texas has a Republican governor. He's did a lot more lockdowns than he should have been involved with. I don't know if he did.
Got another break here, Steve. Sorry to override you. Is our caller still on the line, or? No, I think not. So we'll take our break now, Mr. Station Master. Have it away.
ABC Entertainment News.
A bunch of TV shows canceled late Friday. Netflix axing the teen dramas The Society and I'm Not Okay With This after one season. Netflix says the decision not to go forward with both shows had to do with the complexities of making content in a COVID-19 world. And Showtime canceling the spin-off Penny Dreadful City of Angels, also after one season. First reviews of Christopher Nolan's Tenet are in.
I need some idea of the threat we face.
The first real blockbuster of the year to hit theaters at the end of the month. Consensus seems to be that it's visually stunning, but lacks emotion. Peacock trying to get more eyeballs on its content, the new streaming service making the full first season of its drama Brave New World available for free this weekend. New music from Mariah Carey. Save the Day, which prominently samples Lauryn Hill, is the lead single from Carey's upcoming archival album, The Rarities, out October 2nd.
Don't show up.
And Dua Lipa with a birthday Saturday, she's 25. Jason Nathanson, ABC News, Hollywood.
From ABC News, Wall Street weekend stocks ended a wishy-washy week with another record close, the S&P 500 climbing once again a few points to an all-time high. Trading's been very quiet in recent days after a tremendous rally since March wiped out virtually all of the nearly 34% drop the S&P 500 suffered after its all-time high. Record aid from the Federal Reserve and Congress helped launch the rally, and more recently, corporate profit reports that weren't as bad as expected helped to boost stock prices. Apple this week became the first U.S. company to boast a market value of $2 trillion just 2 years after it became the first to reach $1 trillion. Construction of new homes surged 22.6% last month as home builders continue to bounce back from the coronavirus pandemic. It's going to be harder to find the Hut soon. Pizza Hut says it's closing up to 300 restaurants. Most aren't really conducive to takeout. Daria Albinger, ABC News.
It's expected to stall in the Senate, and President Trump has indicated he will veto it, with the House voting to provide $25 billion in funding to the U.S. Postal Service and to block operational changes ahead of the election. North Carolina Republican Virginia Fox opposing it.
Democrats manufactured this crisis and are using it to create fear and advance their agenda.
It passed mainly along party lines. 26 Republicans did vote with Democrats. Alex Stone, ABC News.
Greenland.
Washington.
A record last year. 586 billion tons of ice melted, according to a new satellite study, which cites a combination of climate change and weather effects. A German institute says not only is more ice melting, it's melting at a faster pace. While a NASA ice scientist says last year's melt added 1.5 millimeters to the rise in the world's sea level, an astounding amount that translates to coastal flooding and other problems. 2019's melt equals 140 trillion gallons of water. That's That's enough to cover the state of California in 4 feet of water. Uni Han, ABC News. Greenland.
Steve Hempling is giving us insight on the Constitution, and also we're talking pandemic quite a bit. And we've got about 10, maybe 12 minutes or so here where we can wind up and talk about these various subjects. And I want to read one thing here on this 45-page document that I printed out. It's called SARS-CoV-2 Occult Initiation Ritual. Pandemic planned years in advance by NWO as a new world order elite cultic Satanists. Ritual, lockdown and quarantine, that's isolation and fear. Ritual, hand washing, symbolic of rejecting Christ. Ritual, mask wearing, silent submission, dehumanization, and alternate persona. These rituals symbolize eradication of personal freedoms, replaced with a new normal, you hear that all over the air now, of authoritarian coercion and control. And this goes on. That's why I say this is very interesting reading. It's very good reading and educational, because you learn what they don't teach you anywhere. Steve?
Yes, well, many countries have already blown this off. Germany, there were some documents leaked out of a Germany parliament where they said this is way overblown, and they're just sorry they ever got involved with the lockdowns and stuff. And the model, like I say, of Sweden seems to be the best model. New Zealand locked down even harsher than the United States. They were one of the worst, and they were proud of not having any cases, but they're on an island. Now they're starting to have cases, and all it's going to be, they're going to be behind the rest of us because they're not out there. This herd mentality we have to be around people. There's supposedly a 640 European doctors established an extra parliamentary investigative committee on COVID. And the evidence shows that COVID-19 is a global hoax. No one's, as you said, no one's even proved that Corona-19 exists that I know of. They just say it does.
They say it does, and now they're trying to engineer a vaccine for something that doesn't exist. Does that make sense?
Makes no sense to me, and I don't think they're ever going to come up. They never came up with a vaccine for COVID-1, whatever it was. What was that?
That's basically the same thing. Yeah.
That was 10 years ago or so. There really isn't. It's going to blow over for one thing and not even be needed. Number one. Number two, I don't think it's possible, because coronavirus is one of those things that they have not been able to come up with a vaccine for. So when they say they have one now that's 50% effective, that's all it has to be. I think they know it's like not effective on both 50%, and the other 50% not effective either. They won't tell you that, and because they're going to make a lot of money on this thing. Somebody is. Yeah. Well,
that's one thing I want to remind people of here. It is not common knowledge, especially on the internet or on the major media. Fauci, you know who he is. He's that famous doctor, so forth. He says he is. Fauci, America's new 21st century prophet. Dr. Anthony Fauci, in a speech entitled Pandemic Preparedness in the Next Administration. Now, here's the kicker. Just days before Trump's January 29th, 2017 inauguration, this man predicted, that a surprise outbreak would occur during the Trump administration, and affirming the need to better prepare for a pandemic. He further predicted there is no question but that there will be a challenge to the coming administration in the arena of infectious disease. He knew about this right from the get-go. And when you get farther into this thing, it goes back to thousands of years ago. And this is all planned by the people that know how to manipulate people. And if you fall for it, and you do what the governor says, you have no complaint. And if you wonder whose fault it is, like I said last week, who put him in office? Look in the mirror. You put him there. Now you obey him with unconstitutional and unlawful edicts. Whose fault is it, Steve?
Well, I'm going to encourage people again to go to recallgavin2020.com. The people who listen to this program that are in California certainly want to get rid of that man, and we need to get rid of him. And so you can do that. You can download the forms yourself. You may You might find them out and about sometimes, but you can download the form yourself, fill it out, and send it in. Get your family to sign it, or your neighbors or whatever, the people around you. But also on freeenterprisesociety.com, there is a notice there, and we're going to put some more things up there along this line. But it basically says you know your rights. You're not waiving any of them. You're not volunteering for anything. And if anybody violates my rights, I am going to sue you. I'm going to sue you personally, not in your professional capacity, as a personal individual. And you can do that. You can sue the governor as Gavin Newsom, not as governor.
Yeah, this is our constructive notice. It says just that.
So that changes everything. The governor's going to go to the attorney general if we sue him, or you sue him, and he's going to say, gee, you're going to pay for my defense. And they're going to, what they should say is, no, we're not going to pay for the defense. And Truman, you did this. You sued the Bureau of Automotive Repair here in California.
No, I sued the people working for them.
Not the Bureau, but the people individually in there, and they went to the attorney general, and they got no help. That changes everything. When they, and it's free. It's free on our website right now. You can download it. You can download the instructions. And it's free to get the information on the Gavin, recallgavin2020.com to get that. Let's get that guy out of there. Sooner the better. I don't think he's ever going to open up until after the election. Another comment on Facebook, isn't it convenient we have this during election year? I think that Gavin Newsom is okay and actually planning that he's okay with bankrupting California if he thinks that helps or hurts Trump in any way. And I think Trump got drawn into this way too much, and I don't agree with everything he's done. But the other side, I mean, they're insane. Open borders and stuff. That's communism. Worse than communism.
Absolutely. We're going to get one of the men in, or one of the people that are pushing this Newsom recall here on this program. And it will probably be the first or second week in September when I can get him in here. I've already been noticed that he wants to be on our show. Same thing with this new packet that I got yesterday, the 45-page thing that the professor, the PhD, is also going to be on the show when we can get him in and we can discuss this. He's very knowledgeable. It's the same thing with John Rappaport. And he has condensed all of this and put everything that I've been researching on No More Fake News with John Rappaport, and he's condensed it and put it all together in logical order. You don't have to go through pages and pages and pages of what John did, although it's very good. It's an education in itself. This puts it out where you can understand it in plain language, and it explains the people who are doing it, who have been doing it, and want to continue doing it. And we have to stand up to them.
Yeah, well, I think they've created a complete false reality. And fear, if you want to break it down, fear is false evidence appearing real. And I know to a lot of people it appears real. Some of them are very frightened. The teachers here in California are scared to go back to school. They're thinking they got to get their will done before they ever teach another class. I mean, they're not doing any research on their own. You've got to look at this and do a little study on it, because things do not add up what they're saying. And also at freeenterprisesociety.com, you can get on the 17th Amendment that I talked about earlier. I have a lot of little YouTube videos I did on different parts of the Constitution. You can learn something from that might be fun. They're short. But this pandemic is fake, and you can't do any meetings. You can't go to school. The kids, when they go to school, have no field trips, no visitors. No sharing toys, games, learning, no cafeterias, no playgrounds. Got to clean everything every time they touch something. They can't be the kids are going to be insane. And they're going to be permanently damaged with this kind of thing if we let it continue.
Yeah, especially in their education. It's going to be waylaid and weighed out for the people that were on a regular program.
I think the education they're getting is a concern of mine anyway. I mean, that's actually maybe one good thing that's happened. The schools are closed. They're not being indoctrinated right now.
Right.
But we have got to change in fact, Trump said the same thing. The schools are going to make us proud to be Americans again. And he's intent on changing that Common Core curriculum, which is anti-American. And I don't know. I mean, everybody involved with putting that in there should be in jail. And Bill Gates is right at the top of that.
Right at the top. I'm going to read the welcome again before we close out. Welcome to America. You came here from there because you didn't like there. And now you want to change here to be like there. We are not racist, phobic, or anti-whatever you are. We simply like it here the way it is. And most of us actually came here because it is not like there. Wherever there was, you are welcome here. But please stop trying to make here like there. If you want here to be like there, you should not have left there to come here. And you are invited to leave here and go back there at your earliest convenience. And I'm going to read this twice every time on this program. It needs to be put out there so that people know how we feel instead of how they feel and how they're trying to remake our country and destroy it. It's criminal. Steve?
Oh, I agree. I think this is the greatest country. We've got the greatest Constitution. We have the most freedom for everybody here, and there is no country that even comes close. Even our poor people, most of them have running hot and cold water, apartments, air conditioning, and even in some countries they still have dirt floors and nothing, even in middle class in a lot of countries. So, you know, we're way ahead of the game, and they want to destroy that. Someone does.
That's true. Getting the signal for closeout. If you like our format and topics, let us know and tell others. Our time is up for this evening. Thanks to the hosts for their views and opinions. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Tune in next week, same time, and new stations and phone numbers. Talk Radio, KXEX 1550, and TV channel 32.3 TV. Truman Sigler and co-hosts for Personalities in the News. Good night.
See you next week.